Hello everybody! With this video you can test and practice your pronunciation skills for German words based upon the rules that you learned in my other videos. So here's how it works. I show you a German word. You pause the video and guess how that word is pronounced. You can do that by asking yourself which letters in this word are pronounced differently than in English. And then I show you the solution. So let's start with the first word. It's the German word for sport, and the word before this word is the German article. I will tell you in another video about the German articles, but for this situation it's important. For this situation it's only important that you guess how these words are pronounced. So pause the video and try to imagine how this word can be pronounced, and try to imagine how each single letter is pronounced and which letter is pronounced differently than in English. So here's the solution. The R, if you remember, the R is always pronounced differently than English because we use sounds that you don't have in language. But the question here is not if it's pronounced differently, but in which way, because if you remember from my other videos, the German R can be pronounced in two different ways. And in which way is it pronounced in this case? Do you know? Let's see. The German R is here at the end of a word, and therefore it's pronounced like a reduced R sound. The next one would be the German S. Do you remember how it's pronounced differently in German? German S before a P is pronounced at the beginning of a word, like in shy. Then let's see what's the next letter. The P is pronounced like in German, the O is pronounced like in German, but then again the R is never pronounced like in German. And then again here is the question, how is it pronounced, in which way? Because if you remember from my other videos, the R can be pronounced in two different ways. So how is it pronounced in this case? In this case, it's at the end of a word, and therefore it's pronounced like a reduced R sound. So let's put this all together. You know, the first R is pronounced like a reduced R sound. The S is pronounced like in shy. The second R is also pronounced like a reduced R sound. So how would you pronounce those two words? Der Sport. I repeat, der Sport. So let's see what's the next word. The next word is the German word for love. The first word is a German article, and the second word stands for love. So pause the video and try to think in which way these two words might be pronounced, and try to imagine how each single letter is pronounced in German, and if it's pronounced differently than in English, if it's pronounced the same way. So here is the solution. The D is pronounced the same way, but then these two letters, this letter combination, and also these two letters are pronounced differently than in English. The L is pronounced the same, but I show you how the E and the E together are pronounced if you don't remember it from my other videos. So let's see. You learned that normally we pronounce the I as an E, the E as an E, but together we don't say E-E. We pronounce these two single letters together as E, as a long E, like in easy. So the last letter, which is probably pronounced differently than in English, is the letter E, because I assume that in this case you guys, you English people, you would pronounce it not like we Germans do it, but maybe you would pronounce it like E, or probably you would pronounce it at all, like in love you also don't pronounce the E there. So I also put this in red because I assume that you pronounce it differently than us. And let's see if you remember how we pronounce it, because we Germans always pronounce it the same way. we pronounce the E like an E, either in the short version like in 10 or in the long version like E. And if you remember from my other videos, I made a line here because I guess there's no English equivalent for the long German E. But anyway, let's put these two words and pronunciations together. So how would you pronounce these two words? I'm gonna tell you. Die Liebe. Again. Die Liebe. So let's try the next word. The first word there is the German article, which you don't need to know about it yet, but I will explain it about you later. And the second word is the German noun, which stands for nose. So let's guess how these two words are pronounced. Here's the solution. The D is pronounced the same way, but then this letter combination you would pronounce like an I. You would say this word like die. But we Germans, we pronounce it differently. Do you remember the rules from my other video? Here it is. E and E together are pronounced like a long E, like an easy. Then the letter N is pronounced the same way like in English, but this letter is pronounced differently than in English. Do you remember how? We Germans always pronounce it the same way, and you English people, you sometimes pronounce it like we do, and sometimes you pronounce it in another way, because you can pronounce one and the same letter in many different ways. So I assume that in this case you would pronounce it differently than we do. So let's see how we will pronounce this letter. We always pronounce it like in up, the short version, or in the stretched long version like in far. I assume that you would say A to this letter in this case instead of A. And then there's this letter. I assume also that you would pronounce this letter another way, like you would pronounce it probably like S, and we would pronounce it like in zoo. If you remember from my other videos, I told you that it's pronounced like in zoo. And then the E, I assume that in this case you wouldn't pronounce it like we guys do it, because I assume you would probably pronounce this word like nace. But we pronounce the E different. We pronounce it like, well, as I already told you, like an E, like in 10. Let's put this all together. We would pronounce it like die Nase. Again, die Nase. So I hope that this was helpful for you, and if you like, you can check out more training videos. But for now, I wish you viel Glück, viel Spaß und tschüss.